Oh, there's Nelly. I just saw her today. It's
You just
nice.
saw Nelly. Today was
Yeah,
the baby day, right?
the baby day. Yeah, with a small itty bitty 1 month old yogini.
A little bitty baby, huh? And
Yeah.
how's mother doing?
Mother is very relaxed, very playful, and physically was getting better, recovering from the giving birth. But it was a very joyful um,
It was a good visit.
experience.
Huh?
Yeah, it was a
Good.
good bit.
Hello,
Hi, Rosanna.
hello, Hashim.
Guten Tag.
And there is Raj. Hi, Raj.
He has an hello, hello.
He's stuttering today.
Mhm.
I guess that's what that is. Said playfully.
How
So
are you? How are you? Maybe it's a double day. We have to
it's
say
a double.
everything double. Yeah.
And there, I knew that would. I already knew that was there.
I don't even know what it says, but I think it's two, because I don't see the symbol, but I think it's two hands together, right, Samaji?
Yeah.
Yeah. Namaste.
Namaste. Wait, smiling, smile, Ma. We're supposed to
I
have
was smiling.
smiling faces.
We'll do our freaky. I bet Roseanne is smiling too.
I think Roseanne is probably smiling.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's probably true. All righty. So we were going to talk about building
Sunday.
a philosophy of life.
Yeah.
And so where to start with that?
I was gonna see in which book this is. I mean, it's mentioned in every book, but I thought of getting a quote, but I didn't come through it to it. So this is a completely useless comment. But I remember that actually this is in that book fairly at the beginning, and so what prompted me to
What book, what quote? Can you
I no it's
what you're saying?
I think it's Sacred Journey, or it's
Well, it doesn't matter, but anyway.
so I because I remember I wrote just something came up throughout the week, because that's always what kind of leads up to the subject of Sunday throughout the week, and mostly table talk, but also other places. So I will keep it very general, so it's just including everyone. Is that and it came up today actually also when I was meeting with the Dutchies, is that we quickly might think that
Hi, B.
that what we do and the practices that we offer, that it very quickly becomes like, oh, this is what we ought to do, or this is what should be done, this is what they do, or what this even broader, this is what this tradition does. And we have that question often, like, how do we do that in our tradition, or how is that being thought of in our tradition? And I was saying something today which I wanted to repeat. It said it's not that we have to reinvent the wheel. The practices have been done, they've been passed on, the experience, the direct experience. There are people that know how to get there because they've been there themselves and they know how to guide us. So it's not that we have to reinvent the wheel of practices, or when it comes to a philosophy, but yet we have to make it our own. We have to verify it. And that we kind of do in our own way. And we're not just blindly following because Swami Rama says something, that we should just adopt it and just take it to be true, and then just have it in our in our repertoire of sayings, and we just repeat what the boss is saying, and then that becomes, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but there is a verification, there is to make it your own, to really sit down and building your own philosophy of life, of why are you doing this, what's important, what do you want, all these kind of questions that have been that are asked, and are we invited to play with. When answers come, they really start to build something that becomes your own, even though it's ancient, it's eternal, it's ever present. it's that owning of making your own process that really makes it firm. And I was remembering the Yoga Sutra, in which pramana, right knowledge, knowledge like vidya, is a threefold process of direct experience, inquiring about yourself, thinking about it, contemplating about it, and a resourceful, the trust in a resourceful source, either scripture or someone you know. And so it's all interwoven when it comes to hearing philosophy of a person, of a yogi, of a sage, of an adept, of a text. But then it's the integrating part to make it your own that's really important. And so that's why I thought maybe it's a good thing to just talk about again, because it's so important that you find out for yourself, because there is no rule book of practice. There's no rule book of how to live life or how to have a yogic life. And yet there are guidelines. And so it's a fine distinction with not falling into the trap of thinking I have to do a certain, this I have to do, or I must do, or I should do. And so I thought if I just throw that up, then you probably have something incredibly wise to add to what I'm babbling, and Swamiji, because I just thought that would be wonderful to talk about.
Om Tat Sat. No, that kind of, I guess, summarizes. There is Mir. Hi, Mir. A moment of quiet.
Quiet. No, it's just, and
I guess
and so, yeah, what comes to your mind?
What comes to mind to say is, if any of these principles that we keep talking about do not personally, if they do not personally call out in the spirit that says, wow, this really seems true, this one even little itty bitty point, then that point, that principle, that practice, for me as an individual, is totally useless. It's meaningless if there's
Yes.
a principle or a practice there that doesn't excite me and doesn't make perfect sense.
Yes.
Then there's no possibility that we're actually going to do it. And if
Correct.
we do that principle, that practice, then we never will experience the benefit from that.
Yeah.
I was sitting here trying to think of an example of that, and then what comes forward is, no, don't think of an example, because this happens so often. It happens so often.
Yeah.
That somebody will not understand a principle, not do a thing, and not get the benefit.
Or read something and then feels the inner resistance, maybe, or just doesn't really want to do it, but yet because we talk about it so often, then force themselves within the sphere of, well, I have to just discipline myself to do it. But if there's not that joy indeed, or that longing, or that hunger, or that excitement, then why do I do it? There's no forcing. There's no, the joy of, wow.
Something.
Yeah.
Very insightful comment, Ma. It's making me think of the difference between understanding a part in the theater and actually performing a role. It's an interesting way of putting it. I'm lousy understanding because it requires you to recreate the performance of the main actor down to inflection and gesture. But when I have my own role and I make it my own, I excel. This is what instantly sprung to mind in your own.
What a wonderful comment.
Yeah, that sounds like a good reasonable
Yes.
parallel.
And it's not that the act is in the past, if I may continue on her metaphor. The actors in the past may inspire you to perform a certain role, but again, indeed, if you're just trying to copy, and then
If I may borrow, Teria, on the words you just said, if I might borrow on that, in terms of Teria building or establishing her own philosophy of life. This is just a phrase that comes to my mind that Teria may decide or say to herself on her mental checklist of philosophy of life that says, in relation to my sadhana, I will not be an understudy. Yeah. This is my role. This is my life. This is my path. It's my role. I will not be a mere understudy. What pops into my mind.
Yeah,
and that's a statement of worldview. It's a statement of perspective. Yes. It's a statement of philosophy of life, of philosophy of sadhana.
And it has a deep meaning to Teria because it means
that's
something.
The important part, yes.
And we might think, wow, that's a really nice comment and a really nice way to capture some essence of what I also feel is true, but we may find other words that just feel for us, like the personal keyword that you say. It brings tears to our eyes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But
that you say, you know, what do you want? And we try different words and suddenly something captures us. And I just, because Nelly is here and I remember that she, you know, how long have we known Nelly? For a long time. And we were in India, and at one point she basically comes running towards me, grabs me, wants to talk to me, and shares me about her keyword that she found. And it's to be happy. But the moment, and I remember every time when she says the word, some smile just appears on her face. It's a big, big grin because it's so rich with meaning. And it took a while to really, you know, for that word to come forward. But so when you ask, what's your personal philosophy? What do you want in your life? She wants to be happy. And it's not something that she adopted or you know, read a text and saw how you say, I want to wake up. And so she says, I want to wake up, and basically not being the understudy and, but trying to be the understudy. But to find, in that sense, your own word and then own it. And then, you know, practice just starts to flow and there's no discipline needed in forcing.
Yeah. And on top of that, as far as building or establishing our own philosophy of life, when I use this keyword thing as an example. So somebody hears us talking about this. You tell the story about that you just did about Nellie, and she said, I discovered what I want, and what I want is to be happy.
Yeah, happiness. I missed it. She just posted it. Yeah, happiness. Happiness.
Happiness. Yeah. There may be a difference between happy and happiness.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, probably.
But I mean, inside of Nellie. But anyway, what I was trying to say is the very question, the very concept that says, what is my keyword? What do I want out of life? At the big thing, the very posing of the question, what do I want? I'm stumbling here trying to find the words to say this. The very notion of posing the question to ourselves. Does this make sense to me? These people are saying to me, I should have the keyword of what I want. Is this something of value to me? Okay. Nellie says happiness, and so I will also say happiness. And that'll make these people happy. And they're pestering me about this. I'm saying this playfully, hopefully.
Yeah.
People keep pestering me about this keyword that I want. And I think this is stupid. I think this is a waste of time to have a keyword. But these people think that's important. So, okay, I'll play their game. That's what they're doing. And I'll say that my keyword is I too want to be free, or I too want to be happy. And now that I've said that, maybe they will quit pestering me. And if that's the case, then my personal philosophy of life is that there's no value whatsoever in this stupid keyword business.
Yes.
And so in that case, we have not taken on the sense that there's value in this.
Yeah.
But if Nellie feels this word happiness and Roseanne feels this word free, we don't know the context in which it's being said, but then one says, wow, you know, I really do know what I want. And I've noticed this happen often in walking through this concept with a person and watch them. I can hear it in their voice. I can see it in their body language and facial expressions, that the whole process is just an irritant, you know.
Yeah.
And here's me driving, trying to drive home. What do you want? And it's not making any sense. And then all of a sudden, the person strikes on a word that really rings the bell for them. And then in that moment, they say, wow, there's really something to this. This speaks to me. So now in that moment, not only do they have a keyword, but they now have a personal philosophy of life that includes the notion that they're
having a keyword in the first place, that's in
great value in me knowing what I want out of doing all this stuff. I'm not just subscribing to some religion or tradition or something where I'm just hooked up with that and then somehow magic is supposed to happen.
Yeah, to be a part of their satsang, you have to have a keyword, people. So just be aware, pick something that sounds fluffy.
Just about 30 minutes ago, I opened my email box and there was an email from a person. I don't know his name. I've never met him. I don't know what city or country he's in. I know nothing about this man. And it was one sentence. One sentence. Will you give me Shaktipat?
I'm sorry. It's my response.
And I don't know, for better or worse, I just deleted the email. I cannot answer that question. What I'm going to write him back, say, give me your philosophy of life, you know, and hi, Nilesh. And so, and I don't say that to be not nice, but I asked myself, what would Swami Rama do? There was no email when he was around. What did Swami Rama do when he got stupid postage with a stamp on it, letters like that? Nothing.
I remember from the videos, if someone asked a question, that he would go like, and then he would just look at someone else so that they could pose their question. Yeah. Hi, Gurvinder. Welcome.
Hi, Gurvinder.
Yeah. And I think it's, maybe I'm just looking into my own personality, because I remember in the beginning, Swamiji, when we met, and about this path that I wanted to walk, and how you immediately, from the beginning in the first retreat, I met Swamiji in India 9 years ago, and we were talking about the path of sannyas, and that's not the only path, but it's the one thing I wanted to share was that I unconsciously was looking for a rule book, and that because that's still a huge part of what the mind still was working on, like how are you ought to behave, or how do you ought to handle this, or what's the custom, or I was still looking outside myself for answers instead of relying in finding buddhi and inner wisdom inside. And I remember you showed me you introduced me to 11 of them, because I remember it was like a football team of swamis. Not that they were all at the same time, but in the course of a few weeks, you introduced me to several kinds of swamis of all kinds of backgrounds and situations. And I made the very intelligent comment that it was like, they're all different. They're all different. Basically, I started to figure out that therefore, when it comes to the life of a sannyasi, there's no difference. And we were joking about that today, because I saw somewhere online that a Swami did not attend a wedding because it was said in the comment box, Swamis do not attend weddings, period. It was a very short comment. That's why a Swami didn't go to a certain wedding. And I understand the comment, and it's not being opposed to that comment, but I caught it instantly. I said, when I would have just met you, I was a lot more rigid. And I indeed would have adopted that rule that swamis don't go to weddings. Well, I was in Spain a month and a half ago, dressed up in a nice, fancy, almost, bridesmaid kind of dress at a Spanish wedding that was partially Irish and Dutch. And I knew that I was not breaking my vows in the sense of what I was doing. And it took me maybe 9 years at different kind of situations, because, the life that I've chosen is all about sadhana. But that does not say that at a wedding you can't do sadhana. Sadhana is a 24-hour process, no matter where you are.
Part of it or not, but then there's this balancing act between that principle of sannyas and the principle of service to people you're claiming to care for.
Correct. And it's not that I'm going to every wedding and
there's a story
parties every weekend.
In the U.S. near the Pennsylvania Institute, there was a couple getting married in a church down the street a couple miles from the institute, from the ashram. And in the ceremonies in U.S. anyway, in the standard ceremony, there is a part where the officiator or the preacher or the whoever it is that's managing the wedding.
Yeah.
There's some vows that each person gives to the other person. And there's a point in there where a question is thrown out to the audience that says, I'm trying to remember the exact words. I have never in my life been to many weddings. I've been to a few of them. I was even a best man in a wedding one time. Anyway, it's something like, if there is anybody present who
like object to either they're getting
speak now or forever hold your peace, or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was Swami Rama had snuck in the back of the church. Everybody was sitting there and looking to the front of the room, and the event was going on. He snuck in the door. Nobody saw him come in. And I didn't see this, but I heard all of a sudden there was this booming Swami Rama voice coming from the back of the room with that question said. And he said, there better not be. There not be any objections.
But he was not allowed to be in a wedding because
he's not allowed to be there.
Yeah. No, and I think that is a freedom that comes when you not only understand. I mean, it took me, I think, even a while, if I just speak very honestly and personally, it took a while for me to understand that relying and having a philosophy of life that was my own, so to speak, that was not coming from anywhere else, because all our thoughts and all our opinions, mostly 99.9%, are just from outside, adapted and put in the mind. And what are really our own thoughts, what's really coming from the inside out. And to really even understand that, how important that is, and then to formulate it is an amazing process where you feel so free.
Even using the example that you're saying, Matri, we take the principle,
yes,
we internalize the principle, and so you turn that in. You say, well, I don't make a habit of going to weddings, or whatever the principle is, and then we live it ourselves and adjust it to our own situation. And that's the thing about having personal philosophy of life. All of these principles for every one of us, all of these principles and practices that we keep talking about, we have to internalize them. Then we make them our own. And so here's a universal principle. If we're talking about the principle of karma, well, does your tradition believe in karma?
It's like, do you believe in gravity? It's just yeah. Well, how do we even respond?
No, I don't believe in gravity, but you know what? Shit keeps falling down.
Yeah, and action keeps having, and things keep moving around, and And if the karma on the inside, when some scatter wakes up and there's active desire, then karma happens, and I can learn how to use that wisely because it's there anyway. Yeah.
So I from my side, I'm not sitting here suggesting anybody make a checklist of philosophy of life items, although I do recall
Even that could be. Yeah.
I do recall many years ago doing that for a little while with a pencil and paper, with a pen and paper, and I found some use in it. I found that there was some utility in it. What is true for me?
I even remember in art school, Swamiji, and that was way before I met you. At one point, I made my own 10 commands because I said, well, I want my own, I am my own ism, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not because I want to create a religion, everyone should follow me. No, I was attempting for everyone to say, well, you have your own view of life. And so what are your 10 commandments that you live by? That was a poor attempt of trying to, get a hold of what I was intuiting.
But what I want to say back to you, I want to challenge you, frankly, on it. You just said it's a poor attempt. I want to say back to you, no, it's not a poor attempt.
Well, I was 17 then, but
right. It doesn't matter. It's an attempt to try to observe your own perspective.
Yes.
It's an attempt to be aware of your own philosophy of life. And so that some of the 10 things change over time.
Yes. No, that's true. And as I was visiting,
some aspects of that 10 things you wrote down probably stayed true and remain true today.
Yes, and I found better words for them over a while, like the word being free of what I really want. And I think this is the beauty of what I watch other people do, and I find it so inspiring when each life is so different, yet we all walk to the same summit. Hygiene, and we all have a situation in life which karma, like you keep saying, like everything you've done in all your lifetime has brought you to this, and we're all in a different package. But yet, of course, there's some general principles going on. And yet how within that package, within that constellation of arrows that are shot up in the air and that are still flying, and the ones in the quiver and the ones you're holding in your hand, and all that combined, to find people to use what they're doing to, in a very creative way, to get where they want, I find it always very inspiring.
Yeah. And so now when you were just saying that, I don't mean to make what I'm about to say a big, important philosophy of life statement, but everything we've done in life brought us here. Well, here it is. You and I are sitting here having a conversation. Rojo's over there on the couch doing something, I don't know what. And the thing here says there's 17 other people with us. We don't know who all's here with us, but there's Jean and Gravinder and Nilesh and Roseanne and Nellie and Teria. And so here we are. We have converged here today in this kind of way right now. Now, is there something going on? My philosophy of life is not going to ascribe some tremendous great meaning to that and say, well, okay, now we are here together and there is some great spiritual meaning. And now Inika has just said hi. So
hi.
Now it's really, really important because Inika is now with us.
She has no idea. Hello through the walls. She probably has been here.
Yeah, through the walls. But there's something going on. There's something has something to do with the convergence and the moving around. A convergence, yes, a convergence of us as individual jivas, individual souls, and we come together. Philosophy of life question: is there something to this?
Yes.
This phenomenon of convergence of people like this. My answer,
I say yes, but that's because I thought about it. Pondered.
I can write a manuscript describing precisely exactly what that is? No. And part of my worldview philosophy is life is that I don't need to be able to do that. I can be aware that inside of my, get ready for this, inside of my latent unconscious, there it is. inside of that, there are a whole bunch of little habit patterns and attractions and aversions and preferences, samskaras, little things swirling around in there together in a soup.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bowl of alphabet soup in front of me, you know, with little
alphabet vermicelli. Yeah.
Yeah, little alphabet vermicellis. And I take my spoon and I pick it up and I have 3 letters in my soup.
AUM.
And it says, oh, and I say, oh, there's profound meaning to that. And so, you know, I don't think it's that, but there is a soup of samskaras. There's a soup of identities and habit patterns floating around in our chitta, in our karmashaya,
Yes,
our antakarna. And does it have something to do with who I am out here in the world as a personality person? Yes.
Yeah, if we keep hearing that guru is everywhere and it's like gravity pulling us towards the self, and we recently talked about the 24 gurus, and you know, not that it was in the butterfly and it was in the little boy and it was in the ocean, but because it's everywhere, we can see it everywhere, and thus it's in every moment, it's in every convergence, and thus whatever is around, we can learn from it, and we can use it and enjoy it.
You just said, Ma, that example there is a perspective.
It's a perspective.
What is your worldview, your philosophy of life? What is your view on the word guru?
Correct. And there's very different philosophies.
There's a whole bunch of differences of opinion of that.
Yes.
When we were talking about that, or somewhere in one of these satsangs in recent days, I was sharing the story of when Swami Rama told me in 1994 he wanted me to teach people. And I strongly, strongly resisted this thing. I did not want, I had met too many people claiming to be teachers. And I saw a lot of, frankly, forgive the words, bullshit. And I said, no, I can't, I just couldn't bring myself to do this. I can't play that game and abuse people in that way, because I had seen this happening. Abuse of people in the name of I'm the guru.
Yes, and you have done that. I bow deeply for that, because I only start to realize how much you've always done that.
What taught me to do something was the recognition of his request, was that the job he was asking me to do was to help people find the guru within. And and this is actually, I hadn't thought about this, but this is part of the conversation that we're having right now. When we're saying, you know, build your own personal philosophy of life, this is a part of that.
Yes.
You know, to gain the understanding that the verification, the validation, the intuition that every one of us has about the nature of truth and reality and divine and light and God and all of that kind of stuff and guru comes from within.
Yes.
The conversations out here are useful. The books are useful. The Yoga Sutras are very useful. The Bhagavad Gita is very useful. All of Swami Rama's commentaries on these things are very useful. The books are useful. Each one of the Upanishads that we go through is useful. The Tripura Rahasya that we go through is useful. All of these things are useful, but they are signposts. They are pointers. And it's when we each have our own personal internal aha in relation to any one of these, that's when you get the principle.
Yes. And then over the years, knowing that guru is everywhere.
Here, Nellie says, Guru took me 25 years to understand guru.
She said, wow, it took her a while.
Nellie, if I may play with you, which I know I can, now you finally understand that it is me. That was your point, right? Nellie?
I think she's just saying, yeah, of course, Amity.
Nellie. No, she's raffling.
Yeah, I bet.
The raffle, they say, right?
Yes.
Raffle means rolling on the floor laughing.
Correct. Yeah. And also, I do now, and that I say out of direct experience, that even though guru is not a person, and it's not that I put a person on the spot of being the guru, because it's all around. And there's so many people that have taught me the honor of being with someone who is so selfless, who there is no selfish gain. I'm talking about him. Now you can be very happy that I say this on tape. But to have someone around that's so selfish, that really wants to wake you up, I think is in need. And that's my own philosophy too. I think it's a need, because I've seen so many people that think that they're listening to their inner guru, but immediately it's to the inner ego that is playing guru in the sense of how highfalutin. I am like a teacher. I have all the wisdom. And to discern between that is such a delicate process that I may say, I think I would never been this far if I would not have an external source that's so selfish. I don't want to give you an ego boost in that, Swamiji, but that's the honor of being, and I know that other people may or may not agree with that. I'm okay with that. That's again my personal philosophy. And here, even if you would not agree with that, Swamiji, I would be okay with that, because this is my direct experience. Although if it's ego saying right now, you of course can help me. But that indeed, Mir, that guidance, because it's just, we've fallen asleep, and not every samskara can be always immediately be seen clearly by Buddhi as being a samskara. Ego just loves wearing them. It just struck me that finding the guru within and surrendering to the divine source might be one and the same thing. Yes.
Pretty much so, huh?
Yeah, beautifully said.
So when Terry says that to us, that is a view that's coming out of her intuition.
Yes.
If that feels right to you, then that's an aspect. I don't know whether you want to write it down on the list, so to speak, but it's a perspective that's part of Terry's worldview that says that my sense of guru is that this is the same thing as the phrase divine source.
Yes.
It's a perfect.
And then coming back to the Yoga Sutra, in which Pramana.
And look what I got here from Nellie. There's a sure. So you see, he's in agreement with you. It's all about me.
Yeah. Well, if you really thought that, I would have never ever said what I just said. It's just good is that which dispels the darkness of ignorance.
I've noticed that when I try to playfully say something, I try to tell Maitreya I'm the guru, she just starts laughing at me.
Yeah, because I know that's not what you really mean. See, and if I may use Govinder's example, that could have easily been what he just said, but we know him, so I can, like you play with Nelly, I can play with Govinder. That would have easily been a statement that could just be copied and pasted and be like a script could be said, guru is that which dispels the darkness of ignorance. And so if it's not backed up by someone's own practice and stuff, which I know he really means this, because he knows this, because I know that he has been, going through some ignorance and has seen more light and thus really understanding the process. And so this is something that we have to really sharply, I think, understand for ourselves, that in what sense are we just adopting sayings and are just regurgitating them, or really allowing them to come forward from our own. So that, I think, is a great process.
All of us. And that
yes.
And this is what Miriam is saying here, that says we need guidance continuously. Having a couple times I've heard Swami Rama say that what you need that external person for is validation.
Yes.
And I've heard him say that what you need is translation. Now, translation does not mean Sanskrit into English or Sanskrit or into English.
Kiswahili.
It doesn't mean between languages. It means the ability, we need somebody to have a conversation with to help us explore the subtler meanings of what this is about.
To unpack.
Maitreya and I are doing this well today. That's all we are doing for you right now. We're putting some conversation to the question of developing your own philosophy of life. And if through this conversation some insight comes that's valuable to some of you, then that's the principle that Swami Rama was talking about in translation. It's just, and this is, I will say, this is a person
highlighting also, highlighting things.
This is the perspective of saying that tradition is oral tradition.
Yes.
The juice is evoked internally. The insight comes from internal, and you go, aha. But it can be teased out by conversation, oral.
Yes.
In a way that doesn't seem to come off quite so well when we're reading it alone in a book.
There's a living presence. There's the communication, the being together. What is that? I only see a white thing. What did she post it?
Little hearts.
Oh, good. And like back again, I don't know. It's the second time I remember the Sutra of Pramana, the right knowledge, that it is 3 parts. It's your own experience. It's, inquiring and thinking about yourself, reasoning, and it's that validation of a source. And so we're not, the source, if I may use you as the source, that's not the whole picture. If that is resting on its own, it's not stable. It's not grounding. It's not a solid foundation. That the other 2 are needed to really make that beautiful magical triad.
Yeah, and that is a perfect example of what you just said, Ma. So there's a sutra that talks about those 3 things. Well, what do all of you do with that? We say, well, this is the principle of Yoga Sutras. It says it here in this sutra. Therefore, it's these 3 things.
Yeah, because even agreeing with that is a part of your own philosophy, because you may not agree with that statement in the first place.
Yeah, it's part of your philosophy only once it makes sense.
Yes.
The way in which that most makes sense, I think, this is just a comment, is when we've bumped into it quite a few times. And I personally, because of that sutra, I try to remain mindful of that. And when I'm in a conversation with a person, one of the things that does come out sometime is that their intuition of the nature of reality has been with them since early childhood.
Yeah.
And that is direct experience. It's not that, okay, now I'm an idiot. I grew up in a culture and a religion where everybody said I was a sinner, or I'm crazy, or I'm defective because my mental functioning is not perfect and I have a diagnosis of this, that, or the other, and so I'm less than perfect. And so, I don't have the validation, but I have an intuition of the nature of things. And then later on, I get the validation. And or something happens, you say, I just don't understand this principle. And you have a conversation with somebody, and then you're able to see the logic, say, wow, this really does make sense to me. Now this notion of experience, reasoning, and validation, now it makes sense. And so what just snapped into the place? The reasoning part. Now that sutra suddenly now makes sense. Click.
Yeah.
And I have examples in life, where I have I've heard something, it made sense to me, but I had no experience of it. And then later on, I had a moment of experience. Say, It just clicked. It just clicked. It clicked inside, and everything fell into place.
Yeah. So for me, I have experiences of yoga.
We have an experience. It seems reasonable to me, but I've never heard any other human being talk about this. And all of a sudden, here I am in a conversation going through the Mundaku Upanishad, and here's a little piece.
And snap something.
Snap. You go, wow, there's the validation. It's as if I've been sitting here 30 years waiting for that validation. I was right. Yes. when I was 10 years old and I had this intuition.
And there's such a strength that comes from that when you really can firmly stand on something like that, which snaps so deeply. It's like through the core of your essence. It's there, and it's such a liberating and strong experience. I had an emotional moment this moment, and there was awareness that came with that, helped. I had an emotional.
I don't know what a Mary Magdalene is. I'm not. I've forgotten who Mary Magdalene is. Is Mary Magdalene? Who is Mary Magdalene? Mary Magdalene. Is Mary Magdalene the woman of Jesus?
No, Mary Magdalena.
I don't know.
But I don't know how you say that in English. Connectedly. Yeah, indeed. We have these very rich moments in which just something from so deep starts to come forward, and they're often very simple. Actually, I just have to be. I mean, wait. For me, it is inspirational because I know that both have encountered and then overcome all of the obstacles I am encountering in my sadhana.
or at
Because I
least some of
know,
the
yeah,
obstacles.
because I know that you have struggled and attained and are one who has attained. I can trust deep within myself that you are able to guide me.
So there's a convergence, and some aspect of it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
direct.
And it cannot be forced on you, Tyria. This is something that you have
Yeah.
to, if there's some trust in, because of something.
Something was called a Mary Magdalene. I still don't get it. Oh, the emotional moment is called a Mary Magdalene moment,
Uh-huh.
I think. She was yes, okay, thank you. She was the prostitute who followed Jesus. Oh, that nasty old man hanging out with the women of the night.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
a
there's a
beautiful story, isn't it? There is so much judgment being passed around us all the time, who we should hang out with and how we are a good or a bad person because of the people in our world. I have been attacked by that because from time to time over hanging out with people. But I've never hung out with a prostitute. I sound like some of the American politicians. I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
I had no sexual knowledge. Actually, there's a story in Swami Rama's book, Living with Himalin Master, that he was doing a 40-day practice, and on day 39, he kind of thought, well, this is crazy, and he left, and then he walked through the streets, and he heard a lady sing, and then he went back, finished his practice, and afterwards went to see her, and he said, no, I'm a courtesan, don't come with me. But he said, no, you are my mother, and the way he said that had such an influence on her that this lady moved into a boat, I think it was in Varanasi, on the Ghat, and started doing sadhana. So that's kind of similar story.
Yeah. This
Just
is
remembering this area.
meant that there were instances where there were attempts to get closer to Jesus or God in my childhood, but people saw me as too sensual. It was odd. And so, if I may guess here, part of what you're saying is as years and decades have gone by, the part that seemed odd and saw you and you were labeled too sensual, that you come to see that what you're looking for is genuine, is valid.
Yeah.
And that the little girl Roz was on track. And that the messages that were and that seemed odd were off track. And that's, to me, that's the way we sort this stuff out. And this allows us to evolve in our own perception of reality. And our perception of reality becomes our personal philosophy of life and worldview.
Yes.
And then we can draw upon the wise people who have come before us.
Yes. Because what I said in the beginning, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to come up with our own new religion and make everyone follow us. It's already all there in a way, because it's always there. Everything it's an eternal philosophy. It's a perennial psychology. And so, but that again is part of my philosophy that I say this.
Yeah.
It's all there, interwoven into my thoughts and speech and actions. But that's when it comes pouring out. When I talk with young parents, this is, how do I teach this to children? And I recently had another discussion like that with someone. I was trying to say something, but it was not heard. And I said the reason it's not heard because the people that are asking me are not living it themselves. Parents that live this, they don't have the question, how do I teach this to my children? Because it just outpours. It's part of who they are. So it's just what the children will be getting along. I know one lady, she's herself not eating any dairy and not eating any animal products. And so this is just who she is. And it's a part of how she lives life, just as an example. And all of her kids are not eating it.
Not to take issue with what you said, but you said they don't have those questions. I would say a lot of people like that do still have the questions.
Yeah.
They're really living it. And maybe what's missing in that case is the external validation that says, wow, you're really doing a good job with those children. You are being a good example.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
I was also remembering that
I'm not doing a good enough job.
Yeah, because I was also remembering some of the parents who do live this, and meditation is a normal part of their life and all of that. They just, I've seen them being so creative when it comes to being with their children and playing games. For example, when Candy, or, of course, I've heard Candy also had questions of how do I share this with my kids, but I've also heard, when I hear stories what she's doing with her kids and at school, I find it extremely creative because it pours out of her, because this is what she lives. So it's indeed a little bit of both. And again, Terry, we don't know the Sanskrit.
She is being impressive. She
likes to throw out some sutras, but I it's not in my. I don't.
Prajna. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
The spelling, I mean. I don't mean the
sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ratambra, that's one of those. I don't remember Ratambra.
It's probably one of the sutras.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Oh, I'm so relaxed. I like this subject.
Yeah.
It awakens this very soft, smooth feeling inside of something being heard. It's wordless. It has been given words over time, but it's just something to nicely bathe in.
What we're talking about here?
Yeah, that we are. It's our birthright, right, to wake up, as has been said. Again, it's not just to adopt and hold as your 10 commandments, forced upon by other ones. But if it's a birthright to wake up, it's your birthright to have your own thoughts. Freedom of speech and freedom of thinking, and to create, to really build your philosophy of life, and then to stand strong on it. And so for me, it gives a very soothing, warm feeling in the heart, because something inside says, yes, you're allowed, giving yourself the allowance, so to speak. Yeah. And so the intuitions we have then all lead us to yoga.
So inside of everybody is Atman. There's a philosophy of life. There's a worldview.
Yes.
And we don't have to start by taking that on as a belief system. I had heard that, I don't know, decades ago. And it wasn't, I did not disbelieve it, but I did not have an instant, sort of blind faith that it was. But it evolved over time. The clarity evolved over time. And now it's absolutely obvious, whatever I mean by absolutely. It's absolutely obvious to me that Atman is a pure consciousness, is at the core of every human being. And I know that I kind of sometimes overuse the metaphor, but I'm also certain that the driving force behind every cell phone that I see walking down the street stuck to somebody's ear, that the driving force behind it is electricity. I'm certain of that. Nobody has a cell phone that operates without electricity. And nobody is alive living in this world without there being the spark of Atman driving behind it. As a personal philosophy, I'm absolutely certain of that. Now, I had heard it said years ago, things like that, but never said in that kind of way. And that was pre-cell phone, so I couldn't use the cell phone metaphor. Now I can. Not terribly important.
It was just amazing today. I was holding a 1 month old little creature. She's a female body, and I was just looking at it, and more than ever, I was just so intrigued by seeing the continuity of life, that it did not begin with just this birth. And I've had more babies in the past, but then it was not so apparent that this form, this shape is here because, of course, Atman is there. And there's a pool of samskaras that had an urge to play and, manifested the body. And it's like, what has been the journey so far that has led her to this family in which she was born, in a family of yogis, or at least, that the practices are, and that the mother has been pregnant in 2 retreats. And, what a joy that it's just the fact that now there's this little package of samskaras playing in this family, and what she will do with this life.
Uh-huh.
It was just very, very beautiful.
And Daria posted the source of that insight.
I see.
Apparently she found it some great resource on the internet and was able to copy and paste it there.
The experiential knowledge that is gained in that state is one of essential wisdom and is filled with truth. Which also, I think later on says it's...
Wonder where she copied that from. We should find that website.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Taria, for clearing that up for us. Om Tat Sat. There's what it's all about. Roseanne summarizes the whole thing in Om Tat Sat. Now, there's a personal philosophy thing that if there was anything I wish I could get more looked at, is that it's all summarized in Om. I tell you a shocking thing, if anybody can figure out how to do this. When I look at our Udemy courses that we have out there, the one that is so far least subscribed to is the 2 on Jnana Yoga and the Om Mantra. And these are probably, if there is such a thing, the most profound.
Yes, this is the few, Swamiji. It's these start the bases, and it's perfect representation of the whole of humanity.
Yeah. Where did I find that great wisdom? So let's end with the Om Tat Sat.
It's already on the hour. Yes, let's do that.
Let Roseanne have the last word. Om Tat Sat. Okay.
Well, I'll be seeing you in the next online satsang right next to you on the couch.
We are together online here like this, right?
Correct.
But now tomorrow morning, 23 hours from now, I'm on. You won't be here. You'll already.
I will be otherwise engaged, Swamiji.
Otherwise engaged. We got ohms from Nellie. We got a thumbs up from Jean.
So, and then on Tuesday I'll be traveling, but then there's no satsang. And so now, Wednesday.
Do I know what time you're arriving?
I did send you an email with travel times Matri or something, or flight schedule Matri. Yeah. But if you're kind, I can send it to you again, just so that you don't have to search it.
I'll find it. We'll figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
Om Tat Sat. Thank you all for playing and visiting and all of that.
Bye, everyone.
And
I love building life philosophy with all y'all.
All y'all. Have a nice philosophy and have a wonderful, wonderful meditation. A wonderful next meditation.
Okay.
And follow the silence. Follow the Om to silence. And in case you forgot, there it is. Follow the Om to silence. Okay. Bye-bye. Dewey dewey.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, there you go. Dewey dewey, y'all. There's a blending of cultures. Dewey dewey, y'all. Or how about Om Tat Sat, y'all?
Om Tat Sat.
Okay. All righty. Bye-bye. Dewey dewey, Om Tat Sat.